Now we're going to make the royal icing for flooding. That's going to just be a light, it's very liquidy, and it will just fill in the spaces where we have already piped a border. So I'm going to start with 2 cups of powdered sugar. I'm going to add 4 teaspoons of meringue powder. And this time we're going to use 6 tablespoons of water. 3, 4, 5, 6. We're going to mix that together until it's light and glossy, just like the other one, but this one's going to be much thinner in texture and consistency. Okay, if you look in, you can see that the powdered sugar is bunched up on the sides. What we're going to do is take our little spatula and push that down. Otherwise, we are definitely not going to get the consistency that we are looking for. All right, let's try again. Let this run for about 10 minutes and then we'll come back and see what it looks like. So our icing is done. If you look, it's got a nice glossy finish, but it's still really pliable, unlike the icing that we piped, which is extremely stiff, so that it'll take shape. This is going to take the shape of whatever you pipe it into instead of the pipe itself. I have my icing bag ready, and it's fitted with a number 4 tip. That's going to give us just a regular round, slightly bigger than the one that I used to pipe these lines. So we're going to fill in. Okay. So all we're going to do is pipe in, start in the middle. If you need to move it into the corners, you can use your icing tip to do that. And then that's going to dry. Shake it, it'll dry completely flat, like a mirror. So I'm going to do that here, and then I'm going to color some yellow to do more. Now if for some reason your flooding icing is sticking up like it is, all we have to do is wet your fingertip with a little bit of water and push it on the top. And I'll show you how to do that. So we're just going to take your fingertip and press down. And see those peaks that were there before? They're going to go right away. And you can't even tell where you piped. So we lightly sprinkled our gingerbread panels with some powdered sugar to resemble snow. And now we're going to assemble the cake that they were designed for. So I have a 12-inch round chocolate cake on the bottom, which we're going to put the panels around the sides of. I'm just going to start here. The icing is still wet. It has no chance to completely dry. And if it has, just go over the icing with, go over the cake with a little more icing. So what I'm going to do, I would normally, if the cake was still completely wet, which it's not, it's kind of dry already, I would just stick the panels up against it. But instead, I'm going to put some icing on the back of this panel of gingerbread and stick it on the side of the cake. Now I have specifically designed that the gingerbread is going to stick up because we're going to put another layer and stack them up but I want the gingerbread to cover up the base of the next cake. So this is a fun way to make a cake where you can make everything ahead of time and all you have to do is assemble. Because the gingerbread will keep for a really long time after you've made it and even decorated it. Just a thick backing of icing. And then we'll go into how to stack a cake. So now we're going to stack the cake. What I'm going to do is take my next tier and put it on the cake just to make an indentation. If you can see, there are these little X's. That's where my dowels need to go so that when I put my cake down, they will stand. The cake stand itself will stand on these dowels. Because I'm going to transport the cake in different sections and assemble it when we get to Jonah's school, in an attempt to avoid any accidents happening on the way there. So right now what I need to do is put this back in the refrigerator and let that icing on the back of the gingerbread houses harden so that they don't move around so much as we're going along with the rest of the assembly. Okay, we have our white cake and we're going to do the same thing in assembling those gingerbread panels. We're just going to scrape some of that buttercream icing along the back. And then put it on the cake. So this time I measured where the next tier is going to go before we did the gingerbread, so as not to worry about breaking any of the gingerbread. And we moved the Lazy Susan just to be on the safe side. So we have a little bit of our royal icing left over, and what I'm going to do is go back through and pipe it along the outside to look like snow. But royal icing works like glue, so it'll make sure that those pieces don't move when we transport it tomorrow. So there are some tiny holes in between the houses that I'm going to take some royal icing and just pipe in here some snow to keep them together, because royal icing does act like glue. So we're going to go along the sides between any houses like this, and then we're going to do another round along the bottom, just to make sure that when we transport this cake, none of those little panels slide off. Just a light little bit of snow. And we'll keep piping around until the whole cake has a little light dusting of snow around it. So this is our last layer on our gingerbread house, and we're going to stack it all together and then we'll be done.